I've got my investor hat on right now. I'm trying to go, right, how do I make money? And everyone at home watching this is going, how do I make money coming in on this thing? How have you built up a 600 million market cap company without giving that audience who need these conventional documents to be able to make a decision, or at least compare you against your peers? Because at the moment you're saying, trust me, we know what we've got and I'm going to tell you what we've got, and they're having to go, okay, I trust this guy. Hello and welcome to CRUX Investor. We spoke earlier today to Quinton Hennigh, who is the CEO of Novo Resources. They're an Australian gold explorer with 3 projects, none of them in production, but with a market cap of 600 million Canadian dollars in this case. We asked him where the valuation is coming from and what it's been attributed to. We discussed that and a number of other topics in the description below. Take a look, click on the relevant timestamp, that'll take you to that part of the video. If I could ask that you click the button in the corner of the screen to subscribe to our YouTube channel, please. And if you want to see more videos like this, please click the notification bell. Let's hear what Quinton had to say. Hello, Quinton, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Looking forward to this interview.
I'm looking at the conglomerate gold in the Pilbara Novo AGM deck.
Yeah.
It looks there's a lot of rocks in here.
A lot of rocks.
A lot of rocks. Where are you at? You don't get a market cap of 600 million and talk about rocks, right? So rocks is about the future, and I'm talking, got lots of sorting going out here, but I don't actually understand much about the company and what you're trying to do with it. Is that something you can help me understand?
We are focused in exploration in the Pilbara region, which is northwest Australia. So we're about 1,500 kilometers north of Perth. And the Pilbara region is kind of a unique part of Earth's crust. It was a very, very old, we'll call it seed, like a nucleus for early crust. You look back at early Earth history, the chemistry of Earth's atmosphere was profoundly different than it is today. The Earth's atmosphere was largely reduced, which means it didn't have oxygen. It had a lot of other gases, that kind of nasty. We wouldn't have survived very long. In fact, probably not long at all if you breathe that atmosphere. So back then you would have found things like methane, hydrogen sulfide gas, which is very toxic. You would have found a few other things, but by and large, those chemicals would have enabled gold to be fairly soluble in the near-surface environment. So surface waters on Earth, the oceanic waters, would have been quite capable of dissolving gold at that time. Now, why is this important? Well, in terms of gold, gold spontaneously precipitates in the presence of oxygen. Right? It needs a reduced environment to remain soluble. So gold bonds to things like hydrogen sulfide, the gas I mentioned earlier. It combines with methane or hydrocarbon compounds. All right. So back in the early Earth time, gold was soluble, but as soon as this oxygen started to come into the system, through photosynthesis, the solubility of gold quickly decreased, especially in near surface environments. So what we find is, places where there was basically shallow water. So this would have been on that proto-continent, Valbera. Around that is where we get precipitation of a large quantity of gold. The Kapval Craton in South Africa, it served as a platform for sediments that were deposited during this time. And those sediments contain appreciable gold. In fact, they comprise the Witwatersrand Basin. The Wits Basin, which is the single biggest gold field on planet Earth, was deposited around 2.9 billion years ago. And the gold was deposited in sedimentary rocks that formed during this very, very special time. In my view, that deposition of gold was in direct response to this oxygen formation by photosynthesis. So, I looked around the planet. This is about 20 years ago. I started thinking about where else one might find, these types of rocks, and where can you go find another Witwatersrand, right? And unfortunately, we're very limited with how much crust we have to work with. There wasn't much around back then. And today, those little pieces are scattered to the wind. They're all over the planet. But the biggest one is this Pilbara craton in Australia. And that's why I set up shop there. I actually did a lot of the background work around this project. It was a very conceptual approach, but I did this work in say 20 years ago. And then that led up to acquisition of land and really getting boots on the ground and start exploring about 10 years ago through Novo.
That's fascinating. I mean, so you've been through look, you've just told a very technical, geologically technical story about your thesis of why you've selected the Pilbara region, and you've been at it for 20 years, and with a market cap of 600 million, it suggests to me a lot of people have been listening to that story. What have you actually got today? What does it look like? You described yourself as an exploration company earlier.
Yeah, so we've made significant discoveries in multiple places across the Pilbara. The area we first started working, we called Beatons Creek. It's an historic gold mining center near a small town called Nullagine. This area is known for conglomeratic gold. In fact, amazingly, the gold discovery at Beatons Creek was made the very same year gold was discovered in the Witwatersrand, South Africa. In fact, a lot of very, very early geologists recognize the similarities between the two. Yet Beatons Creek and the Pilbara has remained largely unexplored. Various reasons. It's hot. There was production here, but what happened was in around the late 1800s, around the 1890s especially, there were numerous discoveries of gold down in the eastern goldfields, which are further to the south in Australia. And that largely pulled all of these prospectors away. The Pilbara is a very inhospitable place, so it's very easy to pick up stakes and move. We're talking like 45 degrees on a cool day in summer.
Yeah. No, I know. So again, just coming back to that question, is like, what do you have today? You obviously got a lot of data. You've been drilling. You've been able to raise money to drill and get a lot of data.
All right.
What else?
With Beatons Creek, we put together a resource. In fact, it's nearly 1 million ounces, but it's also ready for production. We've fully permitted the deposit, and it's now mine ready. Okay. We're looking at strategies at the moment to put that into production. So, to take something from a very conceptual level to this point where we actually have the potential to produce gold bars is remarkable. There's a lot of exploration potential around Beatons Creek. We've drilled up the low-hanging fruit, but we think that there's considerable potential left.
Okay.
Over at Karratha, about 3 or 4 years ago, we made a discovery of gold also in conglomerates that truly remarkable. We found an area where local prospectors actually had been finding gold with metal detectors coming out of conglomerates. This gold eroded out, and we showed that the gold is actually derived from the conglomerates and is quite extensive. It's a very coarse-grained gold deposit, but it looks quite sizable, and we're advancing that similar to how we advanced Beatons Creek over the past 10 years. It takes a little time. It's coarse-grained gold. Trying to figure out the grade and estimate things like that is very challenging. But we as a company have developed a lot of the protocols and techniques to work with coarse-grained gold. Our third project, Egina, is located in the Pilbara as well, but it's a derivative of the conglomerate story. Basically, at Egina, what we have is an area where conglomerates have eroded away over recent time, over the past few million years. And that gold that was trapped in the conglomerates has been redistributed into gravels across a vast Piedmont, basically a flat surface that extends down to the ocean, to the Indian Ocean. So in that case, we're actually looking at a gravel horizon that's, a meter or two thick. It covers many, many hundreds of square kilometers. And we're doing exploration and also advancing, conceptual work around how we could mine this thing. Much like they mine diamonds in the Skeleton Coast off Namibia. Very similar deposit.
Okay. So those are the three main assets. We're talking about a vast land package here. I get that. Help me out. You've got a six. I'm going to say it again because it's I'm amazed by it. You've got a 600 million Canadian market cap. You've got a resource of 1 million ounces. Doesn't sound like a lot. I know Karratha's you're heading the same way, and the third project's nowhere near that. So if I was reading just a blank sheet of paper without the explanation you've just given me, it sounds like a lot of small juniors with market caps of 20 million. So what are people giving you credit for, the value for, that you haven't told me about?
Look, this is unusual mineralization. Okay, imagine a layer. All right, you can imagine how big that might be. When you start to see it poke up here and there, it's not hard to connect the dots. So a lot of people recognize that we probably have a considerable upside in terms of size, perhaps orders of magnitude if we're lucky, and people are giving us credit for that. They also recognize that if we as a company can tackle this, we can find systematic approaches to assess grade and actually evaluate these deposits. They recognize that we're the ones that are going to unlock that value. So we as a company have developed expertise around quantifying nuggety gold. We've also currently, our main focus is on working out how we're going to recover the nuggety gold from these deposits. We're doing extensive work with mechanical sorting test work. This is using machines that can actually, take crushed rock. They can identify the gold particles within the crushed rock and sort those mechanically. It's kind of a new generation of mining, but if we crack this nut, it's going to be a big one.
Okay. Ore sorter is very topical at the moment with a couple of people we've interviewed. I'd love to come back to that. But again, what you've created is a big problem. You're saying this is a big opportunity of the type that you described to me earlier that big majors are looking for. But as yet, you haven't started mining yet. Okay. And that's a point I want to come back to. But before we do, can you just give me some numbers? So how much cash have you raised over time how long have you been doing this?
The company's actually a little over 10 years old now. I think it was started October 2009. So our 10th birthday was about 5 months ago.
Happy birthday, first of all. How much cash have you raised in that time? What's gone in?
Are you talking total or what we have at present? Total. Let's think about this. We've raised approximately $85 or $90 million, I believe.
Okay. And how much cash have you got today?
We have approximately $35 million.
Nice. That gives you options. So
these are all Canadian dollars, just to make sure we're
for sure.
Canadian this.
For sure. So you don't need to worry about going back to market anytime soon. And let's the usual cliche question. So your burn rate is what?
The burn rate is approximately $750,000 to $1 million per month at present. It kind of goes up and down depending on the season. If we're in full swing, which is the winter months, believe it or not, in Australia, obviously it's cooler, then we're spending more. If it's summer months like now, we're usually spending less.
Right. Okay. And because I don't have it here to hand, is shares out at the moment?
Shares out, it's about 178 million.
Not bad. Okay, so thanks on those numbers. So let's come back to how does this thing move forward? And I'm going to keep saying, because it's a big number. You've got what other people have, a 600 million market cap. You've also got 35 million in cash. According to you, that's 3.5-4 years worth of cash, depending on what you decide to do in that time frame. You're not mining yet. So what is the plan to not mine it yourself and just kind of build out the picture for a major to come in and do the rest, spend the money for you? I mean, what's the big idea? What's going on in your head?
Not in this case, no. Look, a lot of juniors would readily say that the model is to find a deposit that somebody else can buy.
Yeah.
In this case, we are the only company that's willing to tackle these nuggety gold systems. We're the only company that's doing innovative work like this mechanical sorting. our plan is to put these things into production. Beatons Creek will certainly be the first one. We are looking at options right now that could take Beatons Creek into production very, very quickly. So it's not a tall ask that Beatons Creek go into a mill we'll call it the near term. But that will help us unlock, because we will get cash flow from that. We can unlock the other assets we have. Egina is in a joint venture with Sumitomo. We are treating that as, even though it's an exploration play, we're treating that as a concurrent development play because of its nature. And in Karratha, which is nuggety like Beatons Creek, we see being able to unlock that once we get Beatons Creek into production. At Karratha, we already know mechanical sorting does a very good job of recovering gold. It's the kind of operation where if we get Beatons Creek into production, we can then go to Karratha, mechanically sort or upgrade it, and then bring it to a central processing facility.
Okay, so let's do it one at a time, because I've got my investor hat on right now. I'm trying to go, right, how do I make money? And everyone at home watching this is going, how do I make money coming in on this thing? Not that you mind, because you've got 35 million in cash right now. So Beatons Creek, you've got a BFS on that, presumably. You're mine ready, you're ready to go. How much is it going to take to get that thing into production? It's only 1 million ounces, but with exploration upside. So paint me a picture about just that one project now.
Okay, we're looking at nearby opportunities for acquiring mills. Right, there are mills available in this area.
How much do you pay for those? What's a mill cost?
We'll find out.
Okay, because if I look at Beta Hunt, what did they pay? They paid like $50 million for a 10-year-old mill, didn't they?
Yeah, it's order of magnitude. That's probably the ballpark you're talking.
Right. Okay, but then you're either going to have to burn into your 35 million, or you can treat it as a separate project and get it going. So how much money do you intend to spend on Beatons Creek?
As far as buying a mill, I can see doing something like that through equity.
Sure.
Whether debt financing is required, I'm doubtful. I think we could pull it off with straight equity. Like to preserve our cash. We need the cash to explore, because once we get into production, probably the first thing we need to do is start hitting exploration on all cylinders to ramp things up and get more production going through that mill. I would say that just the capital needed to revamp the whole picture in that district is going to be on the order of maybe 25 to 35 million Canadian, somewhere in that neighborhood. Again, to finance that, equity is certainly possible. Debt financing is available. I was surprised. I was telling you earlier that there's a lot of interest coming from people now looking to park money in gold. And what I'm finding is the terms. 3 years ago, boy, you couldn't get a loan to save yourself in this industry, and usually you had to pay with a pound of flesh or right arm or something.
At least.
Today, people are actually rocking up and offering very competitive terms for debt financing. I've seen 6 or 7%.
Okay, so tell me what they think. What you've got there. What do you know? You've got 1 million ounces, which I say is a bare minimum, right? But what kind of grade are we talking about? And
about 2.5 grams. 2.5 grams, which for an open pit, near surface deposit, it's phenomenal.
And AISC? How much is your AISC?
Look, we have not published official numbers on the economics, so
okay.
I gotta
give me an unofficial one. I'm okay.
Okay, we'll talk in we'll say speculative terms. I think we could produce gold for somewhere between $800 and $1,000 US per ounce.
Okay, so you're below 1,000. Okay, fine. And have you got a sort of sense of, obviously you've got a resource at the moment of 1 million ounce, but you think that you can develop this out, you'll just step out program and start spending money on this?
We can see quickly growing the resource base at Beatons Creek. We know that because when we put the resource together last May, there was a lot left on the table, and it requires a bit more exploration, a bit more drilling and other work. But we know that we can expand that deposit. Now we also have other deposits in the area. This is where what I'm trying to do is show you that if we get Beatons Creek, into that situation, then we can unlock a lot of value because we can demonstrate doing it at Beatons Creek, we can do it elsewhere.
Beautiful. Okay, and that's that exploration step out program. That's within the 25-30 million equity raise or potential equity raise that you're talking about.
Yeah, the money that we have, like I said, 35 million in the bank, but I would like to use most of that for exploration. The 25 to 35 million that's needed for capital would go directly into putting the Beatons Creek deposit into operation, and that would have to be sourced elsewhere.
Right. Okay. And when you say get into operation, do you include the mill within that total number? The operation includes
the mill I see is potentially acquirable through equity. It's in bankruptcy at the moment, so we're looking at a situation where.
Gotcha.
With.
Okay. Understood. Okay. So there is just on that one. I think it's important for people because you've got a lot going on. Not only have you got a global scale in terms of size and the amount of work that you're doing, and I do buy the thesis bit, but just to break it down, siloed for people to understand how you're approaching it. So Beatons Creek, I get it. That's a lot of money, but at your market, you should be able to raise that money. Feel confident about the equity component there.
Yes.
Gold environment as it is, your market cap as it is. You think that's
There's one other important thing that most investors in Novo know is that we have an alliance with Sumitomo Corporation. It's a ability to finance acquisitions and capitalizing operations. So Sumitomo and Novo signed an MOU in January of 2019.
Yeah,
have capital available, significant capital available, tens of millions of dollars in theory to fund our future.
Ben, what type of money? Is that going to be linked to some kind of offtake, or is it as a JV equity partner?
They do both debt and they like debt. They like minority positions as a holder of assets. Sometimes they do offtake, but usually debt or a minority position in producing assets.
And would they want to own the mine? And so the mill, or is that something to be negotiated?
No, I think we'll own the mill. If we did something like some arrangement with Sumitomo, I imagine it would be debt or a minority position in the operating asset.
Okay, fascinating. Okay, let's move on because there's a lot to talk about. This is a big project. Okay, so let's talk about Karratha. You've kind of got coarse grain. You've talked about ore sorting. Or you saying you've got some interesting ore sorting technology. Why is it different from anything else out in the market at the moment? Does it need to be?
So there's been a lot of news around ore sorting lately. Gold has been slower to catch on than a lot of other commodities. Diamonds, they've been using ore sorting for probably 2.5 to 3 decades. In gold, it's different. Gold is sometimes it's very hard to correlate gold with certain minerals that can be sorted. Most approaches use say properties of the rock, like optical properties and color, things like that, or mineralogy to sort, to upgrade, and produce a concentrate. In our case, why our approach is much different is because we're actually looking at the gold itself. Because we're dealing with coarse grain gold. And when I say coarse grain, at Karratha, it's millimeters. At Egina, it's millimeters. At Beatons Creek, it's say a millimeter or sometimes more, but often just a millimeter in size. It doesn't sound coarse, but in gold world, that's coarse, all right? And machines and the processing technology of computers has gotten to a point where a conveyor moving 3 meters per second, a sensor that shines X-rays up through that conveyor belt. You can see a little tiny speck of gold, little tiny particle, say less than 1 millimeter in size. You can identify its location, and then when it reaches the end of that conveyor belt, flicks it off using compressed air into a concentrate. And that's just absolutely remarkable. You can take, depending on the nature of the system, if it's really coarse, you can produce a very low mass concentrate. If it's, kind of moderately coarse, like at Beatons Creek, where it's, millimeter scale stuff, you can upgrade, say, you can knock out half your rock mass through waste, you can remove half of your rock mass as waste or very low grade material, or even more. You might be able to upgrade it, 1 to 3 or something like that. So
Wow.
it's phenomenal.
Okay.
All of a sudden it costs like $25 a ton to process a ton of rock. All right, if you can upgrade, let's say you have 100 tons, right? You're going to take that 100 tons and let's say you knock it down to 30 tons. Well, if it costs you $5 a ton to eliminate those 70 tons, that's peanuts, right? That's $350. But what you save is you save fully processing those 70 tons, which would have been $25 per ton. Okay, that's a huge savings. You're saving $20 a ton, so you're saving $1,400 a ton, and that translates into margin.
And that's huge. I mean, those are some of the biggest numbers we've heard when we've talked about ore sorting. We've talked people who've been quoting 20%. Is there anything proprietary to the type of ore that you're looking at compared to conventional ore, say elsewhere? I mean, 50%. I mean, it's phenomenal. Phenomenal. 70%. Phenomenal.
It's proprietary. I wish I could say we could patent.
Well, but what's so different about yours that you're getting 70% savings? It's amazing.
It is the nature of the deposits we're looking at. The coarse gold is the attribute. While it's an absolute bear to try to quantify grade in a coarse gold system, the flip side is when it comes to processing it, it's wonderful. These sorters can identify these gold particles, upgrade our rock or gold considerably.
Okay, so you're looking at that. What else are you doing with regards to that? Because this is the number 2 on the list. If you're saying Beatons Creek is number 1 thing you're looking at, this is the second most important, second most advanced for you. You're already looking at ore sorters. So tell us a little bit about where you're at the moment. What do you know? Are there any feasibility studies on this? What do you know?
No, you're not going to, that's where I say, we're a different company, okay? We are cutting edge, you can't do a feasibility on some of the stuff we're doing because every day we're at work, we're out testing new techniques, either processing or mining. So at Egina, which I would say is number 2 on the second cab on the rank, if you will, we have a very coarse gold system. The gravels are loose, so we don't need to break up the gravel. It does not require crushing and so forth. You simply mine it, screen it, you put the material through sorters, and you can upgrade it. We've demonstrated that quite well at this point. See phenomenal recoveries, well over 90% recoveries into a very small mass. All right, now what that means is Egina, which is low grade. I mean, the vast majority of the system looks like it's running maybe 0.3 gram. Per cubic meter. Normally people would say no way, but with this, absolutely. In fact, it should do quite well. If all things work in our favor and all the tests prove up as far as the sorting tests, I'm confident about now. But the mining, we're going to test mining. We're going to use continuous miners. Look at how those perform in the field. Things like that. If all of these things come together and work in our favor, we could be producing gold at a very low cost. So Egina is definitely the next most important for us at the moment. But at Karratha, this is where Beatons Creek, what happens with Beatons Creek becomes critical. If we get Beatons Creek into production, in other words, if we have an operational mill available, we can then take material from Karratha, upgrade it at Karratha, and then ship it to Beatons Creek. Okay, so what right now is probably a difficult deposit to capitalize or justify capitalizing, all of a sudden we can unlock a huge value there. So,
but you haven't actually told me. So, what do you know about what's there? You've told me about we've tested the process of the ore sorting.
For example, we've got 2 horizons that we've drilled. We've got about I think 3.6 kilometers of strike drilled on those at this point. We can see very good continuity of the conglomerate horizons. We've done enough bulk sampling. We can see the grades and the range of grades that we might expect. They're probably in the neighborhood of 1 to 6 grams in that range. The challenge is, how do you put a resource to that? You cannot put a resource to that with high confidence based on the nuggety nature of the gold. It's just too challenging. But geologically, we can see the volume of rock. We've basically, and we produced reports to this effect, not resource statements, but reports mineralization reports that outline the work that was done, the volumetric approach we use to the rock, defining the rock bodies that have the gold, and the bulk sampling we use to just indicate the range of gold grades we might expect in those. So we know it's there. We know it can be likely be mined fairly cheaply. We know through sorting test work that it can be upgraded. And because of that, we feel confident we can unlock a lot of value once we get into production at Beatons Creek.
So, I'm really interested, but I'm also struggling to understand it. And I've seen companies like Great Bear, for instance. They've said, forget resource. We're not doing that. We're drilling. We're giving data. And then they go and talk to the market and explain to them. It sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, is you're not capable of delivering a report on this, Karratha, in the conventional sense. There's no 43-101. There's no resource report. There's no feasibility. But you're talking to a finance audience who only understand those things. How have you built up a 600 million market cap company without giving that audience who need these conventional documents to be able to make a decision, or at least compare you against your peers? Because at the moment you're saying, trust me, we know what we've got, and I'm going to tell you what we've got, and they're having to go, okay, I trust this guy. It must be true. I've got nothing in writing which really tells me or gives me anything that I'm comfortable and I understand. I'm taking a new report or new reporting structure from this guy who I've not worked with before, and I've said, yes, here's your money.
Yeah,
we trust you. How did it happen? Talk me through it.
So what have we done? First of all, a lot of what is involved in exploration revolves around risk. Given the fact we have considerable money, people see there being lower risk because they know we have the runway, the ability to advance these. So that takes a lot of risk, like jeopardy out of the equation. They also see we have good partners, Kirkland Lake, Newmont, Sumitomo. So they know we have smart people who've seen these projects, and they know what they're about, what we're doing in the field.
When did they come in? When and why did they come in?
In September of 2013, and that was on the back of Beatons Creek.
Yeah.
I worked at Newmont, so when I managed to put all the land together, subsequent to leaving Newmont, that's when they took their initial investment. Okay. Kirkland Lake came in September of 2017. That was on the back of the Karratha discovery. Sumitomo, we signed an MOU, like I said, in January of 2019, so last year. Okay. And we formed a joint venture soon after at Egina. So we've been working directly with them. Okay. So, it's not a matter of just taking my word. Now, team. Okay, I've got a very good team in Australia. Rob Humphreys, our CEO, is a mining engineer. He's one of the more creative people I know, and that's why I hired him. I could see this guy could take on these very challenging deposits. And he's not the kind of guy that gets bashful about things. He's bold. He's willing to take big steps. Rob then built his own team to support him in Australia. When Novo grew from a little company to a big company, I knew we had to have the right people in place. And I told Rob to build the team he needs. So we've got in-house, we've got everybody from environmental permitters to engineers to metallurgists, as well as the geologists we need to explore these things. We also contract people, independents, who help us with our reporting. We've got, for instance, Simon Dominy, who's one of the world's coarse gold experts, writing our resource reports. So people, like you were saying earlier, people who are smart and want to, the bankers who want to know where the money might go. Well, they look at Simon Dominy's name and they see that this guy's smart. Ian Glacken is another one. Ian is Australian. He's out of West Perth. Again, a coarse gold expert, a resource expert as well. So we're not lightweight. We've got a strong group of investors who are smart. We've got a lot of very smart people working on this property, or these properties, these projects, and they recognize, the challenges, but they also recognize the upside. How do we convince people to invest in our shares? Well, I'll tell you what. I think the thesis or the logic most people have is that they don't want to miss out on something like this. Okay, if and when we unlock all of this potential, I think people see that there will be plenty of upside beyond where we're at.
I hear you. So just answer me a couple of questions, if you may. So when was the bulk of this 85 to 95 million raised? When was the last time you raised money?
Yeah, the bulk of that was raised in 2017, September 2017. Kirkland Lake put in 56 million through a private placement early in that month. Beyond that, the bigger elements of our raise, let me think. I think the next would have been when Newmont came in 2013. In doing so, a lot of warrants were exercised, and those brought in a lot of cash, during what was a very dark period in the gold mining world. So we were very fortunate. We were well cashed up between, say, 2013 and 2017 when the lights were out in gold mining.
Yeah, for sure. So, and there's been no money raised since, so it's not a case, so no one's had to follow the money, and you've been...
Well, hold on. No, sorry. The next biggest raise would have been in March of 2017.
Right.
This was before Karratha, but we raised 15 million at that time. Okay. 15 million Canadian. All right, but so that would have been our third largest. We'll call it raise, or inflow of money.
Yeah.
But it was attached with a warrant. I think it was a full warrant at 90 cents. So technically, I guess, the exercise of those warrants is what brought in. And
why did you do that? Why did you do that? Why did you raise another 15 million?
At the time, we, wind back the clock, think 2017. There was a little uptick in 2016. Everybody is feeling good about life. There's an expression, when the cookie jar is open, you take a cookie.
Yeah, I'm a big buyer of that. But you've got 35 million bucks now. Is that 35 million actual cash sitting in your bank, or is that a facility from your strategic partners?
It was put in by, I would call it exercise warrants, and then Kirkland Lake. That's where we got our most recent money. So.
Okay, fascinating. So, well, that answers the question in terms of what are people buying into, but. You're going to have to start delivering soon, aren't you? I mean, I know you've got cash, but if you try and develop Beatons Creek like you say you're going to need to go and get some more equity. You're going to have to start delivering on getting into economic production there, or else does this a house of cards that falls over if you can't do that?
No, that's why we brought in, say, Sumitomo as a partner. I think we will be able to access the capital we need to get Beatons Creek into production. I don't lose any sleep at night. It's more about the technical work and getting everything ready than anything.
No, I agree. And I think that was my point. I don't think you're going to have an issue with the money. Too many people are into this thing and they need it to work. But, if you've got full confidence in your ability to technically deliver production economically for these guys to see that this isn't just a great story, but it's absolutely deliverable.
Right. That's exactly what we're doing. We're focused like a laser on getting production this year.
Right. So that's your timing. But give me a clue. Your timing. Your conversations with Sumitomo are happening now. You're looking at a mill which is not mothballed. Is it? What state?
It's care and maintenance. It's not
care and maintenance.
It's not
okay. Care and maintenance. You reckon you could get, all things being equal, you're going to look at getting this into production this year, or is it 2021 story?
That's our goal. Yes, we.
Okay.
I think we're doing this just right. The gold space is turning up. I think this is an exceptional opportunity. We can get it done this year.
Right. Okay, and that will generate the cash to, develop your other two projects on. And which ones are you most excited about? So, who's your favorite child?
Well, like I said, Egina is definitely the second cabin on this in the rank, but. Like I said, if we get Beatons Creek into production, then Karratha suddenly bumps up, because that unlocks the value of Karratha.
And where do you think people, investors, your current investors, are assigning the value to?
That's a good question. I think they see it holistically. I think they do see, I try to communicate this very story that I'm telling you through the many interviews I do with groups here in the U.S. and Canada. Right? So I interview routinely, and I try to get this story across to everyone on a routine basis. So I think most people understand the nuances how we're operating, where we're headed, and I think that they see the greater potential. I don't think they're necessarily ascribing X million to this project and X million to that, and it's not quite like that.
Well, I wonder if it is or not. If I'm putting, if I'm thinking my analyst days, I'm looking at this and trying to put a dollar number against each of these assets, and I can put a today dollar down against each of these. But looking forward 5 years, again, all things being equal, and you technically can deliver economic projects, which one's going to be of major significance on a global stage? Because at the end of the day, let's face it, you've got some nice partners in there, but you're probably going to want Kirkland to come in there and take you out, aren't you?
And look, I'm not going to say that's the mode of operation here. I told you why we're doing this. We want to build a gold mine. We want production out of this. Okay, if Kirkland came in, we'd have to have a few beers and try to hash it out. But in the meantime, we are dead set on getting this thing into production. Okay.
Well, Quinton, thanks very much for running through that story. It's a big story and not one I think I fully understood, but you've explained it well. I'm really excited to sort of see some of these catalysts coming through in the short term, and I hope those conversations with Sumitomo go well and you get some nice cheap money and a great partner to actually follow through with that. So stay in touch, let us know how you get on.
Okay.
And we will follow you with great interest, I think the phrase is.
Okay, you just watch.